Hey everybody, this is TJ with a good day to roll die. Welcome back. Today I want to start a series of videos that I've thought about for a while, um, and part of it was wasn't quite sure what to call it. I was originally going to call it "Beat This Fleet," um, and then it didn't quite sound right. So I'm going to call it Fleet Academy instead. But what I want to do is look at over a series of videos some very common and popular types of fleet builds within Star Trek Attack Wing, how they work, and how you can work against them to defeat them and to win your games. And today I thought I would start off with one of the probably most popular. There, I got the right window now. One of the most popular ones, because it's very easy to run and it's very effective. And if you're not prepared for it, you're going to have a very unfun time. And that is the current Romulan fleet build. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. I threw this one together. I'm not a Romulan specialist by any means. I don't run Romulan very much at all. Uh, um, but I've played against it quite a bit. So this is certainly not optimized, but it gives you the general sense of what this build is trying to do. So here we have, it's a 4-ship fleet, but it really focuses on 2 main bulky ships. We have the Scimitar here. It's got Laris as our captain. He's got a max boost on his captain skill because we have Navala on here, right? We have an interface generator, but we have improved cloaking. But the main thing here is Romulan Cloaking Device, right? We have that on the Scimitar. We have that here on our second ship, the Evaldor, which has Tomlock and Shinzon. Also has advanced cloaking, also has the cloaking device. Has a special attack as well. So let's take a look at why Romulan Cloaking Device is so effective. And then we can look at some of the other pieces of this build real quick. Romulan Cloaking Device, it's really cheap for Romulans. It adds cloaking. They already have cloaking. That's not a huge deal. But it has 2 additional effects for ships. So when you sensor echo while cloaked, actually you don't technically have to be cloaked, I suppose. You just have to sensor echo. Rather than using a straight template, you can use a bank template. So now it opens up the options for the movement on that sensor echo quite a bit. And the second thing is when it's equipped to a Romulan ship, you can perform the sensor echo as a free action. So you're getting a lot of action economy there. So let's take a close look at how this operates within the game. So here we have just 2 examples. Tabletop Simulator, we have a Scimitar facing off against the Spectre. Okay, they're at similar distances. They're about 1 to 2. They're both at range 1 at this point, I guess I should say. Right. So if we take a look at the traditional method for sensor echoing, okay, if we sensor echo here, what happens is, okay, you've moved yourself out of your opponent's firing arc, but similarly, you've moved yourself out of the ability to fire. So you're dodging that attack, but you're also preventing your ship from attacking your opponent. Now, if we go over here and we look at a bank sensor echo with the Scimitar, what happens now is your opponent has no opportunity to attack, but you still have them in a very vulnerable position. And that's the power of Romulan Cloaking Device, especially when you pair it with these high-skilled captains like we're seeing here. Right? So if we get away from this, go back to our build. We have Tom Lockett, Captain Skill 10. We have Laris at Captain Skill 10. If you are activating last with these Romulan ships, you're always going to have the opportunity to react to your opponent's movements and put yourself in the best position to avoid getting shot at while making sure that you're still in a position to fire. And there's ways, of course, to boost this even further, right? Tomlock, in theory, could go up to 11, right? We have maxed out Laris, but 10, 11, even with, if you want to run Shinzon with the Navala, he can get up to 12. That's pretty much going to almost guarantee you some pretty primo position when it comes to activation phase stuff. And then you add in all these other little effects. I mean, the Scimitar by itself is a really monster ship, but then Laris, when you sensor echo, you're getting an additional attack die, plus you're getting a battle station, so some great quality. And then don't forget that sensor echo is free, so you could still potentially target lock you have a target lock and a battle station, right? We have improved cloaking on here. You only have to disable one of your shields, so you're getting extra defense for the scimitar. The scimitar's built-in ability allows you to keep the cloak up, so now your opponent can't target lock you. Similarly, when we get over to the Valdor, we have advanced cloaking, which does basically the same thing, so your opponent cannot target lock you if you keep that cloak up. We have Tomlock adding some attack quality, re-rolling on those tech slots. We have Shins on here giving you a ship's action on the battle station action on the action bar. Plus, he has this really good fleet action where you can remove time tokens on a secondary weapon, and then you get an additional action as a free action. And then we're going to combine that with flanking attack, so you could potentially use this every single turn to do a lot of damage to your opponent. And then we have a couple support ships because those two aren't enough, right? We have a couple Romulan science vessels with the Natra to further push that damage potential for these ships. We have cloaked mines to kind of force your opponent into particular positions on the board that are going to be more advantageous for yourself. And then we just have this very annoying secondary vessel with Vreenak. He's got the obligatory 1 upgrades to engage his negotiation, but your opponent either has to choose between discarding a pretty much useless card for yourself and giving you the opportunity to discard something really good on his or her build to mess them up. Or if they deny negotiations, all your Romulan ships get +1 attack die. So now you're looking at, really, really devastating attacks. You're attacking first. You're going to be arc dodging. It's going to be a really, really tough time. And having run into these builds, it can be very, very tough. It can be very, very frustrating to deal with. So again, the Romulan build is really simple. Avoid getting shot, but keep yourself in target range and just hit them with really, really powerful attacks with really good quality. So how do we go about countering that if you're going to play against Romulans? Well, I have a list here, and this is in no particular order. I'm not saying 1 is better than 3 or anything like that. This is just kind of how I came up with them. But it's going from the top down, how do we counter this Romulan build? One option would be, if you can't beat them, join them, right? You can run your own Romulan fleet and do your own crazy sensor echoing maneuvers. When it comes down to this kind of scenario where you have a mirror match, that's not really my thing. Whether it's Attack Wing or Star Wars Unlimited or whatever game I'm playing, I don't like mirror matches particularly. But in this case, it really comes down to who's going to have the captain skill advantage. So if you are in a situation where you are mirror matching Romulans, you're going to want to max out that captain skill. You're going to probably want to use Shinzon as a captain and Navala as a support crew to give him a 12. And then maybe on your other ship, you could use Khan with an Admiral. And he's always going to have a higher captain skill. So if you can out-captain your opponent and make sure that you are the one activating last and getting those sensor echoes in, you're going to be in a better position. If you're equal captain skills, well, now you have to worry about who has initiative and that kind of thing. So that is one possibility. If you want to go that route and run your own Romulans, you got to really consider that high captain skill. Another option, the one that I often fall back to because I play a lot of Federation, would be 360 weapons. So any weapon that has a 360-degree firing arc, again, going back to our tabletop simulator example, right? USS Spectre. Okay, if we're looking at all ranges here, and if we had a 360 weapon here, this ship is going to get hit regardless of where it's at. Right? So what options do we have for 360 weapon? Well, we have dorsal phaser arrays for Federation. It comes in a couple different flavors. There's the 3-cost version that came in Alliance, which is usually the more cost-effective version. There's also a more expensive version that came in a couple different packs. Most recently, I think Ships of the Lion had it. I think they also reprinted it again, and These Are the Voyages. That one, the phaser array attack value is equal to your primary weapon value, but the cost is your primary weapon value +1. So it does get more expensive. But if you can fit that on there, you can have 360 weapon coverage at range 1 to 2. You're still vulnerable at range 3. That does mean your opponent, if they are good at positioning and maneuvering, they can still maybe get some advantage, but it does take away some of that positioning advantage they have with the Romulan Cloaking Device. And you can further push that with Kelvin Uhura and Julian Bashir. They combo really nicely together with Dorsal Phaser Array, because with Uhura, you can activate her, increase the range of all your upgrades on your ship by 1. So now your Dorsal Phaser Array is active up to range 3. And then Julian Bashir makes sure that you can activate your Uhura every turn. So in that situation, doesn't matter what your opponent does with Romulan Cloaking Device, you can still hit them back wherever they tend to go. The other option for 360 weapons in the Federation range would be Dorsal Torpedo Pod on the Akira class. So this gives you the option to fire with torpedoes. Downside here is you're going to lose the range 1 option. So if your opponent gets in close to you, you're not going to be able to fire with Dorsal Torpedo Pod, because the Federation torpedoes are, I think all of them are range 2 to 3. You could use Hoshi, I guess, from the These Are the Voyages pack to reduce their range by 1, but that's it's kind of a very niche situation, but it might be a situation you could consider. The other downside is most of the Federation torpedoes are going to need a target lock. And again, if your opponent is running advanced cloaking or running the scimitar, you may have difficulty target locking them. There are some workarounds to that. There's metaphasic shielding, metaphasic sweep. There are a few torpedoes that don't necessarily require a target lock, like transphasic torpedoes, which would be a great one, honestly, against Romulan ships. Or you could run a torpedo that doesn't require you to spend your target lock. So if you can acquire a target lock somehow and keep it on there, the Mark 6 torpedoes from These Are the Voyages would be that potential option. So that would be a range 3 weapon option, but you have to consider where that target lock is going to be coming from. Outside of Federation, in the Dominion class, we have multiple dorsal arrays. This is a range 1 to 3 weapon, which is really great. It does require you to put some time tokens. It only has a 3 attack value, but 3 is better than nothing when it comes to fighting back. And there are some ways you can pump that up. I think, and I'll give credit to Dan over at the Fremont Reformation. I saw him run this combo in a recent tournament, and I thought it was a genius idea. But you could run Gold Ducat, the version from the faction pack, the Dominion faction pack, where if you spend a evade and a scan token, you can convert up to 3 battle stations into 2 hits each. Right? Run him with T. Earl Grey Hot and multiple dorsal arrays. So you fire the arrays, you get 2 time tokens. Next turn, you use T. Earl Grey Hot to place a battle station token. And I'm realizing Eldara is not the one you want to use this with, because it doesn't have battle stations innate. You could use the Reklar would be the one you want to use here. But this was just as an example. I threw this together really quick, so I apologize. But you could use the Reklar to get a battle station token. Activate Teal Grey Hot. Now you have a scan and an evade for Gold Ducat, plus you're re-enabling dorsal phase, multiple dorsal arrays every single turn, with a potential for up to 6 damage with Ducat's ability. So that is a potential way to look at it. And again, with the Romulans themselves, they have their own anti-Romulan 360 weapon, Aft Disruptor Emitters. Similar capabilities, almost basically the exact same option as multiple dorsal arrays. Is a little bit of a different activation pattern. This one does cost more if it's not on a Romulan ship, but it does make it available to non-Romulan ships at a cost if you really want that range 3 option, compared to the Dominion version of it, where it's only available to the Galar class ships. So something to consider if you want to run cross-faction and you're really looking for a potential 360 option at range 3. And then finally, there's a couple ships that have their own built-in 360 weapons. The Enterprise D has an ability where it can target a ship at range 1 to 2 at -1 attack dice. So this is basically a built-in dorsal phaser array. The Voyager has a similar ability, but doesn't have that -1 attack value, but takes an Aux token instead. The nice thing about these abilities is that they are primary weapon abilities. So things that pump up primary weapons will pump these up. Type 10 phasers, overcharge phasers, things like that. You can use with these to get some additional damage out of them. And we have Borg. The Borg have 360 weapons, something to consider as an option as well. And Regent's flagship, you can fire in any direction, but it's only at range 1, so it's very, very limited, but it is there to use. So 360 weapons are a possibility. What else do we have? We have attacks that occur outside of the combat phase. So prior to combat, the activation phase attacks. So if you're facing an opponent that has high captain skills, and if you move first and activate first, if you can somehow attack them during that activation phase, you can get them before they can evade your target, your what's the word I'm looking for? Your firing arc, excuse me. Right. So again, this is just an example. This isn't optimized, but just to show the cards. An Abrantane. As a fleet action, you can discard a Dominion crew and make an attack with the ship's primary weapon at -1 attack die. Yeah, so that's a way to do that during the activation phase. You very often see this comboed with things like Gorn Ale, because Gorn Ale, you can reduce your captain skill, and you don't care about captain skill, right? Because you want to attack first. You want to activate first in this situation. You can reduce your captain skill in order to boost your primary weapon ability to offset the negative penalty from an Abrantane. Another way to do this would be Captain Worf, Mirror Worf, where he can target a friendly ship at range 2 with a hull value of 3 or less. That ship immediately makes a free attack with its primary weapon. So if you set that up properly, you can make multiple attacks there. And then you can combine this with things like additional phaser arrays, which is it's a Federation weapon, but it's often used very cross-faction, often with like hidden under Quark if you can get a discount on it, that kind of thing, where you can activate additional attacks, or you could use Worf to attack with the Enterprise NX-01. And then have phase cannons on there to make an additional attack, that kind of thing. So you can really do kind of these chain combos and build up those attacks during the activation phase. Finally, one I don't see very often, but I always thought was interesting. You could combine the AKSMR with Matt Decker. His action, you boost the ship's attack value by 1, and then he suffers 1 damage. That triggers the Amar's ability to make an attack. So that could also trigger an activation phase attack there. So get in the damage before your opponent can evade you, and you might get the drop on them and get some hits that way. Another option would be to find ways to get rid of or disable the Romulan Cloaking Device. Okay, if you get rid of that ability, your opponent loses that free sensor echo action. They also lose the ability to do that arc dodging with that card. So some possibilities there. I think the best one is T'Pol. Okay, now she's only limited. She is not limited just to Vulcan ships, but she kind of is, because she has this secondary effect where when you put her on a fleet, you have to place the Stone of Gaul underneath her. And it's not a May thing. I'm pretty sure this is mandatory. You have to do that if you're going to use her. And the downside is for Stone of Gaul, if it's not attached to a Vulcan ship, it costs 5 extra. And that means that even if you attach her to a normal Federation ship, if it doesn't have the subfaction Vulcan, you're going to pay 5 for this card. And that's not really the reason that you want to have this effect. You just really want to have T'Pol. T'Pol works great on the Tecumber, though. It's a great Federation Vulcan ship. You get a discount on her. She just costs 1. But the main thing is after your ship moves, you can discard T'Pol if you're within range 1 to 2 of an opposing ship. And you just straight up can discard a tech upgrade on that ship. And then you get to equip Stone of Gaul, and that has an additional action if you want to use it. But right there, boom. Get your ship within range of the Romulans, discard their Romulan Cloaking Device, and now that really severely limits not only their action economy, but also how and where they can move. Similarly, you have Kira Nerys. Her ability is only at range 1, but it is a free action. Allows you to disable an upgrade equipped to a target ship, and then you can possibly discard a crew member if you roll the die the right way. Not as nice because you're just disabling, and again, your opponent's going to go next. They could re-enable the Romulan Cloaking Device. That's going to give them that free sensor echo action again. So it's really kind of putting you back in the same position. It takes away a little bit of their action economy, but honestly, for the cost here, probably not worth it for Kira. Definitely would consider it for T'Pol, though. Other options in the Mirror faction, you have Ezri Tegan, more expensive. It's an action, not just an ability like T'Pol's, but does allow you to, it is range 1 to 3, so you get some more space to operate than T'Pol does. And rather than just discarding the upgrade, you can steal the upgrade and put it on your ship. And Romulan Cloaking Device does do something for other ships, right? It does give you the cloaking action. So now most of the time, it doesn't give you the sensor echo action, just gives you the cloak action. So that might be useful in some situations. But the main thing is that you are taking away the Romulan cloaking device from them, and they're not going to have access to it. Burial Antos is kind of like the Timu version of Ezri here. You have to, he's reusable, so he's a disable rather than a discard, but he does have the same 1 to 3 range ability, but you have to roll an attack die, and on a hit or a crit, you can discard that upgrade, or you can steal it. But there's a chance, there's 50-50 chance you're going to miss on that. So he's cheaper. Is it worth it? If I really want to mess up my opponent, I want to make sure I can take care of that card. I don't want to, dicker around with, is it going to work or not? So Ezri and T'Pol are options there. Then we have one particular card, and I think this could be an interesting subset of abilities. We just haven't really seen a lot of them yet, but limiting sensor echoes. And that's where we see the Intrepid from, I think this is Lost in the Delta Quadrant. So the Intrepid has an ability that during the planning phase, you can target a cloaked opposing ship at range 1 to 2. If the ship is Romulan, you can target another ship. So you can target up to 2 Romulan ships. And those ships can only use the 1 straight template when performing a sensor echo. So severely limits their ability, effectively takes away those special cloaking, those special sensor echoes, and it's going to limit their ability to get away from you, and it's going to increase your chances of staying within firing range of those ships. So that's a possibility there as well. And then finally, we have not finally, but in terms of cards, card strategies, we have ways to throw aux tokens on these ships. Right? Now, if we go back to the Romulan build, very commonly, you're going to have the scimitar, and you're often going to see advanced cloaking. These abilities allow the ships to retain their cloaks even when they attack at the cost of an aux token. Okay. So if you can find ways to add to that aux burden, and it's going to be more difficult for them to recover if they lose their actions the next turn, of course, they're really going to get stuck, right? So in the independent side of things, you have Verteron Pulse Trap, which ship moves within range of the trap, they automatically take an aux token. Keep in mind that will affect you as well, so you got to be careful with how you maneuver around it. Obviously, the Ferengi Photon Torpedoes can be a big contributor to this by just giving aux tokens. In the Cardassian side of things, Dominion side, you have Supreme Tribunal, which is a really cheap elite talent that can just drop an aux token on a ship in range. In the mirror side of things, you have Brunt, again, a really cheap card upgrade, crew upgrade, where you can just discard him to put an aux token on someone. And I don't have it listed here, but the new quantum torpedoes for Federation also, when you target the ship and attack it, they take an aux token. And there's other ways to do that as well, of course. So yeah, if you can get them in aux trouble, then it's going to limit their ability to use all those special actions and maneuvers and stuff that really make those Romulan ships effective. The last thing to consider, and again, going back to the tabletop simulator here, would be if you feel confident enough and if you are good with predicting maneuvers and movement, and you have lower captain skill, would be to block your opponent from completing their maneuver. It can force them to bump your ship where they lose their actions. Right? So again, I'm going to reset my ship here. Right? Let's say my ship is sitting here. Okay. Maybe we're positioned like this, right? And let's say we just got done with the attack phase. Okay. My opponent used advanced cloaking on their scimitar, using the ability they have an aux token, right? Now, what does that mean for that ship? Well, if we look at the Warbirds maneuvers, okay, they're going to want to take a green maneuver, right? They want to get rid of that aux token, because if they don't, they can't trigger that series of actions that they have available to them. Okay. So what are they going to do? Well, they could do a 1 maneuver, 2 maneuver forward. They could do 1 left or right bank. Okay. And in this scenario here, it's really simplified because we're missing a lot of potential obstacles, other ships that may be involved here, other things to consider in terms of movement. But if I'm looking at my opponent, I'm thinking, well, they could either do a 1 or 2 straight forward. That's going to probably put them maybe here or here with a 1 or 2. And let's just make it clear, right? They do a 1 forward, they do a 2 forward. Okay, that's going to put them here or here. Okay? If they do a 1 bank, right? They're just going to land them there. Oops, I don't want more of those. There we go. Got too many. Right, there you go. So there we go. There are the potential green. Well, I got a lot of those. Didn't mean to make that many. Anyway, we got those are basically the 4 potential maneuvers they can make. Okay. So if I'm in this position here, what can I do with my Spectre? Okay. My thought is probably if I can put. Where's my little thing? Here's just what I want. We can drop a little token. No. Okay. If I can put my Spectre somewhere kind of right around here, like let's say if I can do a 1 bank maybe. It's not locked, okay? So I can like do a 1 bank, look at that, okay? It's going to block basically all of those maneuvers, right? So if he does a 1 forward, boom, he can't make it. He does a 2 forward, can't do it. Tries a bank. Basically, this ship is gonna get bumped, and it's gonna lose all their actions. Sure, they're gonna get the Aux token away, but they're not gonna be able to move anymore. And now this might be a ship that I'm gonna have to be willing to sacrifice, right? Because even without any quality, right, they're potentially throwing 7, 8, maybe 9 dice if they have the additional attack quality. This ship might be toast, but that also means that if I can stop him from moving, all my other ships can move on for the kill. And I've been successful with that maneuver. A couple years ago, I played in a tournament game where I played against Romulans, 2 large Diderodexes that had the Romulan Cloaking Device, and they had some additional options. One of them was Twilight's Wrath that has some ability to maneuver. The other one had Sela as a captain, which allows you to do extra maneuverability. So those ships were bouncing around the board. I was using a swarming fleet that had fairly low captain skill compared to my opponent. So I was always moving first, and they were always had the ability to move last, right? And I was having some real trouble running them down. It got near to the end of the game where my opponent, I was able to predict pretty well where my opponent was probably going to put their ship. So I took one of my last remaining ships and I used it as a blocker, stopped them, bumped their ship, stopped them from moving, and I was able to finish off the Diderodex, and I ended up winning by like 2 or 3 points. So if you are good at predicting that kind of stuff and you have a good sense of kind of a good spatial awareness of the board and the map and understanding where people are going to want to try to move, that can be really effective regardless of what kind of cards or what kind of fleet you have built. If your opponent can't take actions and they can't move where they want to move, it really doesn't matter necessarily what their fleet is. You're limiting them quite a bit. So never feel like you are necessarily out of the woods. If you can maneuver well, it can make up for a lot of potential deficiencies in any particular fleet, and it can help kind of equalize 2 fleets that otherwise may have very disparate abilities and powers. So I hope that provides you a little bit of insight into how these Romulan fleets work and some ways that you can fight back. You don't have to use all of these strategies. Just consider maybe throwing 1 or 2 into a build. David Montgomery, the late great David Montgomery, used to say that in every fleet you should always consider taking 5 or 10 points and using those to with the idea of disrupting your opponent, whether it is giving them Aux tokens or stopping them from doing things they want to do, discarding cards from their fleet. And if you just can disrupt them just a little bit and throw them off their game, that can give you a huge advantage down the road. So take a couple ideas, see how they work for you, and just fly a fleet and and see how it works out, and go from there. There's no such thing in my mind as a unbeatable fleet. It's just a matter of understanding how they want to win, and then finding ways to take those win conditions away from them. So we'll go on next term. We'll look at some other fleet builds and keep going forward here. If there's a particular fleet type you'd like to see that you want me to analyze and come up with some counterattack to it, please let me know. In the meantime, I appreciate you taking a look and watching this today, and have fun out there. Take care. Bye.